What is going on, Bucs fans and CFP fans? Evan Wanish here, back at you with another video talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And today we are going to be going over the best and the worst from the Buccaneers' exciting, thrilling, down to the wire Week 2 victory against the Houston Texans. 20-19 is your final score. The Buccaneers win it in the final seconds on Monday Night Football to improve to 2-0 for the 5th straight season and 4th straight under Todd Bowles. Joining me today is my CFP co-host, Mr. Rhett Matthew, to break it all down. Rhett, how are you doing today?
I am doing great on this Victory Tuesday. Second straight week of celebrating victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got to like the start that they have had. Like you said, 5th straight year, 2-0. On the injury front, still a little bit concerned, but for the most part, I think these are two gutsy wins the Bucs have under their belt, and a hell of a way to start the season.
Definitely. I think the only thing that you can't like is, can we get a game that doesn't go down to the final play?
Yeah.
Is that possible? But without further ado, let's get right into the best. And we're going to start off with Baker Mayfield. Now, will the stat line wow you? No, not necessarily. However, it's when you watch the game, right? And you're going to be able to tell when you talk to people or whatever who watched the game, who didn't. If you're just looking at the box score, it's nothing crazy. He was 25 of 38, 215 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Carried the ball, though, 3 times for 33 yards, including a clutch 4th and 10 scramble, which kept the game alive for the Buccaneers. The Bucs end up going down, score the game-winning touchdown there. Baker Mayfield really toughed it out for the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. What do you think of the quarterback's day?
Much like Greg Jennings, I think Baker put the team on his back here. The Bucs, really, at so many points throughout this game, looked like they were going to lose. And in the past, these are the kind of gut check games that we have seen the Buccaneers just come up short, lose a heartbreaker in the final seconds. I mean, on top of that, they were so short-handed on the offensive side of the ball. Baker didn't have much of an offensive line to work with by the end of this game. It's just a textbook example of why guys like to play for Baker, why fans love to root for Baker, and I'm glad that it was on display for the entire football country to see. The entire football world, really, on Monday Night Football. Just a gutsy performance, and this is exactly why people love him as our franchise quarterback.
No, for sure. And I mean, look, it seemed like he got banged up a couple times during the game, stayed in there, toughed it out, and came up with the plays needed to get the W. But he did have some help, and we're gonna move on to stay on the offensive side of the ball, but we're gonna talk about the Bucs running back duo here of Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. Of course, Rachaad White getting that game-winning touchdown. But Bucky Irving was really good too, both in the run and pass game. Bucky Irving said 17 carries for 71 yards, 4.2 yards on average. Rachaad White, 10 carries, 65 yards, 6.5 yards on average, and of course that touchdown. But Bucky Irving had 6 catches for 50 yards. Both guys really contributing in big ways in this one, and I don't think the Buccaneers win this game if they don't get the contributions from Irving and White that they did.
Yeah, they were kind of the only offense the Buccaneers had down the stretch when you consider how well the Buccaneers ran the football. But credit to Josh Grizzard also for seemingly getting the most out of these guys early on into the season. It felt like, it usually takes a good chunk of the season to figure out how Rachaad White can pair well with the other running back in the system. But Josh Grizzard has both of these guys firing on all cylinders early and often, and you love to see it. I don't think that there has been an offensive coordinator who has had this impressive of a rushing performance from both Rachaad White and Bucky Irving in the same game. Very strong day for both of those guys.
No, for sure. And hopefully it's something that they can keep up for the rest of the season. Hopefully it's something that can become a trend. But I think this offense works best when both those guys are, going. So with that being said, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. We're going to focus on another duo here, and it is the duo of Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tyke Smith. Again, when you look at the box score, it's not like anything eye-popping. Now, Tyke Smith did lead the team in sacks again. He had a sack. But Winfield and Smith really doing a pretty nice job in this game here. Obviously, like I mentioned, Tyke Smith with the sack. That was on 3rd down, a pretty big play there. But a nice night for the Bucs safety duo.
Yeah, and you saw Antoine Winfield show up in run support, and that's where his strength has been before. Just his ability to be all over the field, right? And I think at times tonight, You saw that from him. He was making tackles, he was playing physically, and he really came in to help the Buccaneers at a lot of points that you didn't necessarily expect to see him. But I thought really these first 2 weeks of the season have been a nice return to form. He's getting very active out there, which is what you like to see.
No, for sure, for sure. And look, I mean, after a injury riddled 2024, it wasn't the season that Winfield wanted or really anybody wanted. It's nice to see him back healthy, and I think you're seeing that a healthy Antonio Field Jr. is a clear difference maker in this defense. Now, like we always say, with every win, there are negatives, of course, and let's go to the negatives now. And we're going to talk about the Bucs offensive line. Now, we will say the circumstances are the circumstances, okay? Luke Gedeke does end up playing in this game, not for long. He comes out with that lingering foot, ankle, whatever it may be, is immediately or almost immediately ruled out. So tried to tough it out, couldn't do it. Bucks had to put Charlie Heck in at right tackle, and the Bucks offensive line simply was not good enough, right? Now also, they are playing one of the best defensive lines I think in football. The Texans have Daniil Hunter on one side, Will Anderson Jr. on the other. They have Sheldon Rankins up the middle. It's a really good defensive line. It's really good defense in general. But the Bucks offensive line definitely struggled on Monday night.
Yeah, I agree, and kind of like you said, it's hard to be too mad at any one person in this situation. Like I know a lot of people might, want to point fingers at Graham Barton, but that's such a tough spot to be in. And I
Hmm.
thought that while he was serviceable in that week one game against Atlanta, Daniil Hunter is just on another level, and it was clear very early on when the Texans found that matchup. They abused that matchup between Daniil Hunter and Graham Barton. By the end of the third quarter, he was getting tossed into Baker Mayfield, it seemed like. So on the right side, Charlie Heck was not much better at times. It really did feel like, the edge pressure closing in on that pocket for Baker Mayfield was just early and often. And it made it very difficult for the Buccaneers pass game to really get anything going downfield as the game went on. So hopefully you get some reinforcements in that aspect with the return of Tristan Wirfs. We will monitor Luke Gedeke and ultimately see what happens there. But hoping to have both of your bookend tackles back in the lineup healthy sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's tough to truly evaluate the offense, right? With how it is right now, and I do think the offensive line will naturally improve if Wirfs, Gedeke, hopefully can come back sooner rather than later, just like you said. But with that being said, let's move over to the defensive side. And look, I mean, I thought the defense, to be fair, the defense kept the Bucks in this game, right? Like we talked about it on the podcast. You guys can go check that out right now. The Bucks defense, without them, the Bucks do not win this game. It doesn't matter what Bucky Irving, Rashad White do. It doesn't matter what Baker Mayfield does. They don't win it. But there were a few things. Uh, one thing I want to mention really quick, but this isn't the main focus. The Bucks four-man pass rush still wasn't great. They have struggled getting to the quarterback without blitzing yet again. The Texans' offensive line is not great, so you want to see that improve. But we're going to be looking at the Bucks linebackers again, I think. And Levante David had an up and down night. He definitely did. Servatier Dennis, though, had another rough night. And I think you're seeing the growing pains right now of a young player who hasn't really played a ton. But I mean, look, the Bucks aren't some team that's trying to rebuild or see what they have. They're trying to go out there and win football games. Eventually, Dennis is going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough spot to be in because, as we kind of talked about on the podcast as well, Levante David can only do so much at this point in his career. And I think that when you start to look to the future, which is what the Buccaneers are going to have to do after this season, you look at Servatier Dennis, you look at what he's given you over these first two games, and it feels like there's seemingly going to be, as of right now, two question marks at starting linebacker next year for the Buccaneers. So hoping, again, to see Servatier Dennis bounce back. The Buccaneers put a lot of stock in him to begin the season, and there still seems to be plenty of season left. We're only 2 weeks into this, but before you know it, we're going to be 10, 11 weeks into this, and you do not want to see these same problems continue to surface for an otherwise, decent Buccaneers defensive unit so far this season.
No, I definitely agree. And the last one we will mention is not offense or defense. And we're not even going to single anybody out. Okay, you could have, but I think it's so bad. We got to talk about the entire unit as a whole. That's the Bucs special teams. I mean, in basically all three phases here, they weren't very good. Chase McLaughlin, yeah, he made a couple kicks, right? But he also missed a kick that he shouldn't have missed. It's not like it was a 65 yarder. It's not like it's a 45 yarder that he just shanked. It was inside 40 yards. Those ones have to be made. Misses a kick for a second straight week. Riley Dixon gets a punt blocked after the Texans were getting close all game long. Gets a punt blocked, and then the Texans to set up their go-ahead touchdown. They get a long punt return. Now, whether you think it's a block in the back is one thing or another. It still happened though. And the Texans really all night were getting pretty solid returns. So definitely a night to forget, I think, for the Bucs special teams unit.
Yeah, more than agreed. Our guy Money Mac has lost the moniker of Money Mac simply because he just can't make these kicks early on in the season. That hurts. That arguably hurts more than the Levante David thing, just because of how far the Buccaneers have come with their kicker position. It seems like now that we finally have a punter, our kicker can't do anything. And this was, again, top to bottom. Special teams performance was just abysmal. There wasn't any unit that had a good night per se against Houston. So it's going to be something to monitor going forward. I hope it's not something that we have to monitor all season. It's one of those things that when you look at a team this talented and you look at a team that can win games like the one that we just watched on Monday night, you'd hope that a kicker isn't going to be what holds them back, or you hope that an incompetent punter isn't going to be what holds them back. But so far in these first two games, the special teams unit has created some hairy situations for Tampa Bay. So that's got to be fixed moving forward, without a doubt.
It definitely does, and hopefully it does. Hopefully, all the negatives are something that ends up being fixed. But regardless, the Bucs are still 2-0 on the season. That's all that really matters, right? Getting W's at this point, stacking them up. So you stack enough up, eventually you wind up in the playoffs. So that's the ultimate goal here. But let us know who you thought was the best and the worst in the comment section below. We'd really appreciate it, and curious to hear what you guys thought. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And go Bucs.